People say, when did you start doing beadwork? Or when did you start doing art? And I always tell them it was in vitro. Fabulous artist. I came out of my mom's room and I said to the doctor, move, you're in my light.
Don't you know I built a pyramid? And a mouse's house too. Oh, if you let me get hooked up at school, you know I built a spaceship.
Oh, gotta use my application.
Whoa, Lord. Everybody go, ho! That's you, Sally, ho! That's you, Sally, ho! Everybody talking about Sally, ho! Everybody singing, yeah, 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 Sally, 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 all right, oh!
I'm Joyce J. Scott. I'm a visual and performing artist who was born and, as we say, reared in Baltimore, Maryland. I've lived here all my life, not in this house, but in Baltimore City, in this house for over 40 years. Here I am, an African-American woman who decided never to leave her community, never to run away from herself as a black woman, to stay with my community the way it was in the 50s, when black people of all ilks lived together in a community and gave hope to each other. I remember that community when it was different, and I look at it now and see how, for whatever reason, it's been left to lie fallow. I have to talk about my being just a classic African-American woman from the East Coast, whose family's from North and South Carolina. They were all about making a way where there was no way. They did everything. Musicians raced horses, they were weavers, they had stills, you name it. My mother was an artist and she taught me to do beadwork when I was around 5, and I always did it. But my mother, as a textile artist, taught me how to bead by sewing into the fabric. I went to undergraduate school and I kept using my mother's needle and thread as a passport to other countries. It was the thing that would initiate conversation and maybe a residency, but it was also what everybody else knew. In 1976, I met a young Native woman who taught me the Peyote stitch. And everything in my life changed. I was always trying to work with translucency, but with fiber, light goes, it's absorbed or it bounces off the surface, it's not translused. Peyote stitch allowed me to do anything that I wanted to do with beadwork. And you know, I'm a little mad scientist inventor about beadwork. And it allowed me to do that without encumbrances. I didn't have to have a loom. I didn't have to have fabric. And it became a method of communication that combined my mom's thing where you have a needle and thread and people will talk to you because somebody always sewed in their family, with this ability to transmit light. And that means a lot to folks no matter what we say. And since people all over the world do beadwork, it was once again another page of that book of communication. And art can be that if you allow it. I attempt to pay real homage to the beadworkers around the world because I'm working with an ancient history here. I see it as my working with something so incredibly special that's been handed down from the beginning of time. This is an amazing thing to do, to be this purveyor or this carrier of this. Glass has been in my work for a long time. I mean, I used to use mayonnaise jars and anything that helped with translucency. One of the best things that happened was my getting 2 residencies at Pilchuck, which is the glass school outside of Seattle. Because there I was working with not only the primo glass artist, but also younger glass artists gaffers who would work with me and show me the way. So this meant that I could begin to ask people to create for me. It really opened such a giant door for me because I didn't have to depend upon something that existed. If I wanted a vessel or if I wanted a figure or components to a figure, I could say, let's make these. I realized how forward-thinking American glass artists are and how I'm a product of that. So when they said, why are you doing Buddhas? And I'd say, because I'm an artist and everything is available to me. So you're asking me about how this thing started at Grounds for Sculpture. What is that about? Well, why did I even choose Harriet Tubman? Because she really makes me think of my mother. That's it. Okay. They were both little thunderbolts. Neither of them were 5 feet tall. They were both dark-skinned, and my mother told me what that meant to be dark-skinned in America. And they were go-getters. My mom would have been one of those people who would have been on the Underground Railroad dragging people out of the South. I chose Harriet Tubman because she is a great light for me about what you can be through all kinds of adversity. So this show, co-curated by Lowry Sims and Patterson Sims, has these different components. Harriet's boudoir, that space that would have been a bedroom, dressing room, contemplative space. When I first started doing this, I thought, you'll have a vanity and a bed and a chair and some shackles, you know, the ubiquitous, and her shackles. And then as I was going on, I realized that I don't have to do that. I can have a dream boudoir for her. I can have a closet that exemplifies my way of working, as well as what I think the mysterious life of Harriet Tubman's inside would have been. We'll be doing a lot of different things, all combining textiles, my beadwork, and my sculpture to talk about this space that Harriet inhabited. I'm even going back and crocheting a shawl out of wool that I wove, that wool that I spun when I was young and doing that, making a special shawl for her. I have 2 other site-specific installations outside. So they're like, Joyce, what do you want to do? What would you really want to do? You should never ask me that. So the first thing I said was, maybe 13, 15-foot Harriet Tubman made out of like dirt. She'll be holding a big glass gun and she'll be wearing a beaded sack and she'll just like disappear over the length of the exhibition, the way her memory did. Just the gun in her bag or whatever is left on the ground will be that memorial to Harriet. I cannot not mention the Seward Johnson Atelier. This is where a lot of the actual site-specific sculpture was created. They're very nice and patient. Because think about working with me. Harriet Tubman made out of dirt, and we'll get up on scissors or in a cherry picker and dig into the dirt. I'm so excited. The second one outside is a 10-foot Harriet Tubman. And the way we're doing it is going to allow me to inlay different beadwork and glass into her. She'll be on a tri-level kind of space outside in front of a wall with a tree. So those tri-levels are going to be covered with quilts. That's a direct kiss blown to my mom and all the other African-American women who did that because they couldn't afford blankets. And that's just for Harriet African-American, but quilting is an international form of swaddling people in love. So for me, this glen, this small area, which is next to water flowing, talks about those highways and byways that she had to traipse upon. Her way of finding her way back to the north and back to the south. And in African-American culture, especially in the South, we talk about the Hanks. And the Hanks are ghosts that would hide in the trees and the bushes. So that's why I'm festooning the trees as well. But these Hanks are not something that she's frightened of. They're the ones who are lighting her way. This is an institution that was not only created, but has dedicated itself to exhibiting and collecting the work of sculptors and artists who believe in dimensionality and who believe in grounds where sculpture should exist. They're allowing me to do what I wish to do. That's a big deal, which means that allows an audience to see what I'm up to. Being able to look at Harriet Tubman, maybe say, who is that? Maybe they'd look her up afterwards. Maybe there's just the significance of a big black figure. Maybe there's a place for her as well. And the fact that she disappears speaks volumes, especially in our political situation right now. I'm honored by that. And boy, does that harken well for all of those people whose shoulders I'm standing on right now, who never had that ability.